Welcome to Breakthrough Minds with Raj Mahapatra. I'm Raj, and I get to sit in the room where cutting-edge technology is being built. And the conversations I'm part of are just too good not to share. That's what this podcast is all about. So I'm here with Dr. Katie King from BioOrbit. She's the CEO and co-founder of BioOrbit. Katie, tell us all, who are you and what do you do?
Hi, thank you very much for having me here today. So I'm Katie, I'm co-founder, CEO of BioOrbit. Other than that, I think I'm a space nut and a peanut butter obsessive. So what do I do? I am running BioOrbit, and we are building a pharmaceuticals factory in microgravity to change the way in which cancer treatments can be delivered to patients. And this is all about the crystallization process that takes place in space in a far superior manner compared to how it does on Earth. So we want to use that to make new drug formulations.
So I'm really pleased because you've just kicked off and you started talking about all the things I've made notes of that I want to talk about in one sentence. That's amazing.
Ta-da!
Excellent. Thank you so much. I want to go back to how you got here, because how you got here, I mean, I've read about it, and and people who want to find out, I mean, you can easily Google your name and search for your name and find out about how you got here. But actually, in your own words right now, go for it.
So, always loved space since being a kid, wanted to be an astronaut, was inspired by, in the IMAX, there was something called the space station in 3D. And I remember seeing an astronaut playing around with water. And I just thought, wow, that looks really cool, like a preteen does. And it's like, oh, I want to do that. I want to see that. And that sort of kick-started me into science. So from a young age, I thought, okay, I want to go to one of the best universities and I want to study science to give me a chance at going to space. So I did physics and chemistry as my undergraduate and then specialized in chemistry at the end. Between my master's and my PhD, I was fortunate enough to go to NASA and did an internship there, which was a phenomenal opportunity, particularly as an international as well. My accent stood out a lot.
Helpfully,
exactly.
Hopefully.
I'm like, oh no, it wasn't me. So we were working on the Curiosity rover, so the Martian rover, looking to see if there were any remnants of organic matter stuck in the rock, i.e. could Mars preserve life, or has it ever had life there in the past? So that was a great opportunity. Then I came back to the UK and did nanomedicine. And it was then that SpaceX really started changing the game in terms of demonstrating reusability of their boosters. And I remember seeing it and thinking, gosh, this is a step change for the space industry and the commercialization of space. And I want to be a part of this and build a part of this. So then I thought, finish a PhD, get that done, and then you can move into the space sector. So initially, I just was looking for a job in the space sector as a life scientist who wanted to build microgravity experiments for space. And I started asking around recruiters, and they said, Katie, those jobs don't exist. That's not a thing. Yeah. And I thought that was really short-sighted.
Actually, before we go on to that, let's talk about your PhD for one moment. Because what functionalization and self-assembly of nanoparticles.
It's a lot of words.
So break it down for me. So because I presume that there's a relevance of that to what you do now as well.
Aspects of it, yes.
So because we're talking about self-assembly, and I think that's probably, I mean, I'd like to imagine, I'm not an expert. I'm not even close to an expert in any of these things, in any of those words probably. But actually, can you break it down for me? What does that actually mean?
Yeah, sure. So my PhD was working on building drug delivery systems that can target cancer cells and avoid the healthy cells so that you can then give certain drugs directly into the unhealthy cells. So this was all based on nanoparticles. So we had to build these nanoparticles and then coat them in different molecules that could then target your cancer cells. And then you have other targeting agents on the outside that basically induce cell death. So that you call it like the suicide peptide. So then when this goes into the cell, it causes it to just collapse. So you have to obviously give that to only the cells that you want to harm and avoid the healthy cells. So this was again about self-assembly of these different proteins on the outside of this nanoparticle that could then find its way through the human body to the cancer cell to then induce cell death. So I was very much involved and leading that development of the drug delivery system itself. So much more of a materials problem. So that's really then helped me now in terms of thinking about, okay, how do proteins assemble all together? How when you have all these different chemistries in one system, what happens?
Yeah.
So it very much helps think about those problems now.
Amazing. Okay. Sorry for that. Just that little brief tangent.
Yep.
Back to it. So you are talking to recruiters and they're going,
yeah,
but that doesn't exist.
That doesn't exist. They're saying in this country, those opportunities aren't here. There were some in the States, but again, I'm not a US citizen, and a lot of space is protected. So very hard as an international to then get there. So I thought, right, okay. So that then led me to go to the International Space University, which sounds fake.
Sounds amazing.
It was amazing. It was amazing.
International Space University.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where's that?
It's based out in Strasbourg.
Okay.
But they have a summer program that changes location every summer. So when I went, it was in Lisbon. And that's where really BioOrbit started and where I met my team and where the idea formed. So the idea of mass production of protein crystals in space, that in itself has been floating around as an application of these crystals.
Floating.
But yeah, exactly, floating around. But in terms of how to make it happen and like what is the actual like market value proposition and what is the market for this, that hadn't been looked at in full. So that was, again, with myself and the team, then really like deep dived into it and thought, okay, this is something that could be real. But it wasn't until a few months later that it was like, rather than this just being a desk exercise, like got to make this happen and make this real.
So pretend for 1 second that I gave up biology and chemistry. No, I mean biology when I was at GCSE level.
Yep.
So when I was 16, and I did chemistry until I was 18, and then gave that up.
Yeah.
Just pretend that for 1 second, okay? Proteins are crystals. I didn't realize they were crystals.
Good point. So proteins are just a material made out of amino acids. So that's what enzymes are, technically proteins, receptors in the body, technically proteins, hormones are proteins because they're all made out of these amino acids. But crystals are then how these proteins come together to then form an ordered structure.
Okay.
So we have to try and form these ordered structures of these protein molecules.
Okay. So what you're saying is that in the body, they don't necessarily exist as crystals.
Correct.
But what we're trying to do, or what you're trying to do here with BioOrbit, is crystallize proteins. So let's talk a little bit about that, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
Because what I've actually, before we talk about that, so you are in Lisbon, you've met your team, and you've gone, hey, this is a great idea. We should totally do this. Now, I don't want to say it's cliche, but it is kind of cliche. You had a garage lab.
So yes, we had some engineers in the team and they were phenomenal and made our first prototype within 3 months from design all the way through to the end, which was an automated protein crystallizer. So it involved mixing these fluids and forming these crystals without any human intervention. And they did that so fast.
In a garage.
And sort of running around between a science lab and in the shed and just 3D printing things and making it happen. It was so cool.
I mean, that, you hear about the kind of the archetypal startup and you think, 2 people in a garage. How many of you were in the garage?
So there were 4.
4 of you in a garage. That's amazing.
It was cool.
And I love that idea that you are, let's go back to it. You're planning. No, you are now doing things in space. It started in a garage. I mean, that sounds like a film. One day this should be a film.
Oh man, I mean, that would be crazy. But again, you have to start somewhere. You have these ideas. You have to demonstrate that it's baby steps together.
You expected to start in a lab somewhere. I mean,
Yeah.
I love the idea of doing because the other thing is you're trying to create pure crystals.
Yes.
So I guess you don't produce pure crystals in a garage.
True.
But you are proving that you can produce crystals in a garage.
Exactly, in an automated fashion. So that was very much about, is it possible to do without any human intervention?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's what
because when you're in space, that's what you have.
Exactly. So we used a protein that's very easily crystallized as a model protein to then compare with a lot of data in the literature. And the crystals were beautiful that came out of that. We were all a bit shocked. We were like, that really worked.
I love that. So, I mean, so you are. I'm trying to get the chronology right now. So you've done this. You've done your garage experiment.
Yeah.
But you knew you wanted to do this in space.
Yep.
So tell me about, and you mentioned microgravity in your introduction.
Yes.
Tell me about what microgravity means.
Sure. So on Earth here, we experience 1G. So the gravitational force, so 1G. Whereas microgravity is literally micro, so 10 to the minus 6 of that force that is felt.
Okay, so it's actually tiny.
Yeah. And so when you're in that sort of environment, fundamental phenomena start changing.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of phenomena here on Earth that are induced by gravity. So convection currents being a key one, and sedimentation. So when something sinks in water, and neither of those things happen in microgravity, in space. So that really changes like how things come together, how things form, because it's a much more like a less perturbed environment in that sense. It's much more fragile.
I want to go down that a bit more and talk about all that. However, I think if I was listening into this now, I'd be going, microgravity. So what?
So what?
So what? This sounds like a complete extravagance. So what? So what?
So what? So when in microgravity, as I say, you have fundamental phenomena that are completely different. Now, when you apply that to drugs, you form these different crystal structures that you cannot form on Earth. So I will just back up one step.
Yeah.
In that, so when a crystal's forming, you have small amounts of heat that are given off the growing crystal, and that causes tiny convection currents just locally. And then when it gets to a certain size, it sediments to the bottom. And what that means, both of those two things together, is that there's a load of motion around this crystal as it's growing. So it's very difficult for the next molecule to get in the right place.
Got it. I think.
There's too much motion, and so you get loads of imperfections because it can't get in the right structure.
Okay.
So you have lots of imperfections in a wide range of sizes. Now, when you're dealing with simple molecules, because we can form crystals, we see salt crystals, very, very simple. The effects of gravity are minute, you don't see it. But when you have really large molecules that are very flexible, gravity starts having a noticeable effect. And that is the case when you're dealing with antibodies and protein drugs, because these are huge, very flexible molecules.
Yeah.
So crystals, in a pharmaceutical environment, crystals are something that enable you to take a drug from something that you have to inject intravenously into something that you can inject at home. And that's all about trying to get a really highly concentrated dose that will physically fit through a needle, like a subcutaneous needle. So if we were to just take an intravenous solution and be like, all right, let's just make it hyper concentrated, the proteins start to aggregate, it becomes really gloopy and so thick that it won't get through the needle.
Okay.
But if you use crystals, you can get these high concentrations in a small volume without the viscosity spiking. So you can still fit through the needle, but you can't get the right quality of crystals on Earth. So you have to go to space to get the right quality that can then those crystals can be used in these drugs.
I also presume, and this is kind of like what I learned at school, that crystals are usually more stable.
Correct.
So you've got, I guess one of the so whats is the stability of what you're producing. Because a lot of these drugs you're producing need to be, when they're on Earth, normally produced on Earth because of the nature of them. They need to be either kept refrigerated, they've got limited shelf life and things like that. So what are the implications to those things for you?
Yeah, huge. And you're exactly right. These protein drugs are really unstable and like very heavily affected by temperature, like thermostability. But if you have a crystal, you don't need to store things at -20 or -80. You can store them at room temperature and they're still fine. So in terms of the costs for the cold supply chain, logistics costs go all the way down. People can just keep them at room temperature or in their fridge for years, and therefore the waste goes down. So there's lots of downstream cost savings through using crystals in the drug.
So I am rapidly thinking about implications of this. So we've got on Earth at the moment the problem.
Yep.
You produce a drug. Let's I think you're starting off with cancer drugs, aren't you?
Yes.
So you produce a cancer drug. And because of the storage implications, a lot of the world cannot get those drugs. Because of the shelf life as well of them, a lot of the world cannot get them because it's not worth distributing it where there's not high prevalence of certain things. But actually, with what you're doing, you can distribute those drugs far more widely. They're not going to be stored in the same way. So there's a real, I guess, leveling of the playing field. If we chose to, we could choose to say, actually, everyone in the world needs this drug. And it's easier to administer. Potentially, I guess, depending on, how you want to administer these things, but easy to administer, easy to store, easy to transport. I mean, that sounds like the golden goose, doesn't it?
Exactly. And that's what we're making happen.
Love it. I love it. So that's the so what.
That's the so what.
That's the so what. So let's go back to, you're in space, you're floating around in space. Because I really want to get the context right, because this is groundbreaking on Earth. And we're putting things in space. So there's a really high upfront cost of doing this. I presume, compared to building a lab on Earth, building a lab in space, there's going to be significant cost implications. Your current lab, which is currently in space,
Sending in August.
August,
it goes up.
You got your lab's going up in August, but you've got a test going on at the moment, haven't you?
Actually, June and August. Yeah.
Okay.
So weeks away.
Oh, that's so nuts.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but the first one is the size of a loaf of bread.
Yep.
Okay. So, tell me about that. Tell me about the loaf of bread.
Yeah. So actually, I'm just thinking. Oh, the first one actually is a smaller one. So can we run that question again if it's getting edited?
It's not going to get edited, but
won't
carry
get
on.
edited?
You can carry on.
That's fine.
But we can just talk about it.
That's fine.
No.
That's fine. Yeah. So the first one we're sending up is just is with a company called the Exploration Company.
Yes.
And so they've got one of their maiden missions going into space, and then 3 hours later it returns.
Okay.
So we're looking at the survivability of crystals. So this one's more like a bun roll. It's like a small bit.
So it's a really
tiny.
super small one.
This one's tiny.
So the idea of this one is that you're taking crystals into space.
Yep.
And then when they come back down to Earth again, they're going to go through the heat, they're going to go through the turbulence and everything else. They're going to go through the shock of landing on Earth.
Exactly.
What happens?
That's what we want to test.
Are you going to end up as a kind of like a pate of bread, or is it going to stay like a bun?
Well, theoretically, it should stay as it is, but we need to see if there's any difference compared to our control, because then from that we can assess what engineering features we need to introduce to mitigate those side effects.
Yeah.
Is it impact? Is it temperature? Because fundamentally we're producing ridiculously high value goods, so we need to make sure that they are not affected by that temperature increase and that impact.
I mean, it's a fundamental, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
so we need to do that.
You know, when you go to space, it's come back down, it's going to get hot on the way down.
Yeah. So we need to make sure that see how they survive. So that's test 1 in June, and then test 2 in August, which is again like a loaf of bread. That one is our proof of concept manufacturing line. So this is testing fundamental features that enable mass scale up later down the line. And so we've got some proprietary aspects in that.
Yeah.
So it's very exciting to test that in a space environment. So we won't talk about that
too much.
Can't go into too much detail.
But you built your thing in a garage and about to send it to space.
Yep.
In essence.
In essence. A couple of steps along the way, but it's going to space.
Very simple. There's so much. I mean, talking about scaling that. You've got your loaf of bread. You're going to then build your bread factory in space, I guess.
Yeah.
But you've got to send up the raw ingredients.
Yeah.
So every time, you've got your lab in. I mean, I'm just thinking ahead to these. I love when we do things on Earth, and I talk to a lot of tech companies on Earth. What they do is they build fast, they break quickly.
Yep.
They rapidly kind of evolve what they're doing.
Yep.
You don't have that privilege.
Yeah, we don't have that luxury.
Yeah. So tell me about. I guess you can find out fundamentally. You do your experiments on a computer. You discover actually will it break, will it not break, or you kind of know from the way in which materials work. I guess your background in these things will tell you actually fundamentally that doesn't pan out.
Yep.
And at the same time, part of what you're doing is. It's moonshot technology.
Yeah.
I mean, it is moonshot technology, isn't it? You're saying, okay, this is fundamentally how we see it working in the future.
Yeah.
If we are right, this is the stepping stones to get there. And along the way, we can adjust, adapt. I'm kind of anticipating that what you're building at some level will always work.
Yep. I mean, the thing is, it's not binary in the sense of, is this tech going to work? Is it not? Because the science has already been shown in terms of the superior crystallization process. There will be iterations because it's very unlikely that we're going to hit the bullseye immediately.
Yeah.
Because each drug will crystallize slightly differently. So you have to change different parameters and there will be that finessing for each drug. So again, that's just going to take optimization, but we need to make sure first that it's functional and then you can optimize beautifully after that point. So that's not a risk in terms of, is the hardware going to work? Can we scale it? But it will take finessing.
So it's funny because, like I said, talk to a lot of tech companies and software tech companies. It is often a binary thing. And I love the fact that when it comes to the way in which biology, I guess, and chemistry work, it's a little less certain in that sense, but actually there is a gradation of, success can be, is it 85% or is it 90%? Well, actually, if it's 85%, it still works.
Yeah. So it will take playing around, and it will depend on exactly which drug it is that we're crystallizing for sure.
Yeah.
And like how efficient that is and like what's the yield for each drug. But it's not like oh no, this is not going to work for anything. It's all gone. It's just, you need to finesse it for each drug.
Yeah. When you're talking to people about what you do, what's the moment where they go, oh my God?
Yeah, I think when they say, what does the company do? So, okay, a startup founder, and it's like, oh, what are you doing? It's like, oh, okay, making drugs in space. And it's like, okay, why? But yeah, I say people probably think I'm a bit crazy.
Well, you're nuts, you said at the top of it.
Yeah,
nuts.
exactly.
You're a crazy scientist. I love that. You found the rest of your team. Are they all crazy scientists then? Are you all crazy scientists? Or do you find actually within the team is there the realist?
We've definitely got realists in the team. Okay. But it's very exciting when realists are excited. Yeah. Because it's like, I am an optimist. That's my nature.
Yeah.
But you do need that balancing out because you can't have all the same attitude in a team. That's also not like the same personality type because you're just a little echo chamber otherwise. Yeah. So you need to listen and balance things out. But everybody is so driven to make this a reality. So I'm so proud of my team. So proud.
That's amazing. I've got, I take notes and I'm really staggered because I'm really rarely lost for words about what someone does, because I'm self uncomfortable talking about. And here I'm lost because the ramifications of what you do are so great, because it's not just any drug, because to your point, every drug can be, every human, everything that exists in the body could be crystallized in a way to make it more effective. So
every protein drug can.
But as you said before, lots of things.
Our body is proteins. Yeah.
Body is proteins.
Yeah.
And so with that in mind, I'm trying to, I think through, I can often see the ramifications. I can think forward 10 years and think, okay, I can see how this is going to impact society.
Yep.
With yours, I think that the needles move so far off the back of what you're suggesting.
Yep.
It's actually I have to pause and think, am I thinking too far ahead?
No, I mean, that's the dream. That's what we want to be making, is being mass producing in such a way and for such a pricing that this all happens, because then people don't need to travel hours or days to get to a hospital, but they can just treat themselves at home. And it's like the real world impact that makes on our day-to-day lives is huge. We can't get there immediately. We have to go through stepping stones to get there, but that is the end goal.
Yeah. I'm thinking about that and thinking that I'm imagining that laboratory in space.
I'm so excited.
But also this laboratory which is completely automated. So you haven't got a person up there.
No.
In your mind, this laboratory in space, what does it look like?
It's a good question. I think initially, because we've got these boxes, so initially it will just be lots of these boxes producing it. Later down the line, I think we will have our own astronaut corps who will have to maintain the equipment, which I would be so excited to start a BioOrbit astronaut corps.
Are you in the?
I might be too old by that point, but we'll see. I'd love to. And then after that, it'll be interesting. It might go more towards robotics. So, okay, do we have to have robots who then deal and maintain all the equipment? Yeah. We'll have to see.
And before we started, we talked very very briefly about artificial intelligence, and everyone is thinking, okay, what's the AI implications here? Yeah. So for you, when you think about AI, how does that impact what you're doing right now?
Yeah. So I'd say, I mean, obviously the day-to-day tools is very, very handy to just speed up workflow. Very handy. From a science perspective, it will help us to optimize certain parameters. So build a model and build a system based on our box. So then it's like, okay, can we have any prediction algorithms in here to help us speed up our workflow in terms of finessing it and optimizing it? Yeah. That's slightly later down the line. But I do think that, I think that's where it's going to have the biggest impact for us.
Yeah. But I mean, fundamentally, I mean, I'm thinking about so much of what we hear right now is about AI replacing humans. And what I'm hearing occasionally from conversations is actually AI won't replace humans. It can't replace humans. And I'm wondering whether within the field you're talking about right now, it's kind of I'm thinking about the future, and I'm thinking about young people who may be listening into this and going, I'm inspired totally by Katie, this crazy nut scientist, and she's doing bizarre things in space. And think about the problem is that AI is going to mean I haven't got a job in the future. You're shaking your head.
No, I don't think there's a risk of that in what we're doing. We need creativity. We need that innovative thought. I think you need to understand how to use AI as a tool, because I think if you shy away from that, you're just going to disadvantage yourself. Yeah. So it's like learning how best to use it to progress faster, think smarter. So I don't think that's going to replace like humanity and replace humans. We need that curiosity. We need to piece all the complexities together and be like, okay, what's the best outcome? But don't shy away from AI.
As we're talking about this, my brain is flicking around a bit, and so I'm going to be straight. This is how my brain works. Sorry about this. I think about ethics. And a lot to do with, when we talk about pharmaceutical companies, there's the ethics of pharmaceutical companies, and about the whole idea of leveling. And you see drugs that are produced, which are super, efficacious, I guess the word is. Is that the right word? I think maybe that's the right word.
Yeah.
And then people are priced out of it.
Yeah.
What do you see the future like for you in that? And also, I guess the other question I have for you is, let's take one step back. Are you a pharmaceutical company?
I don't see us as a pharmaceutical company. We're not innovating a brand new drug and taking it through regulatory approval ourselves. We will work a lot with pharma to then take a drug that already exists and then turn it into a new product, i.e. this crystallized form.
Okay.
So then it's like, that alleviates a lot of the regulatory side from our perspective, and also de-risks a lot because we can then work with multiple customers.
Okay.
Later down the line, who knows? Like, I would say then it would be worth us looking at products ourselves. However, it takes approximately 1 to 2 billion to get a new drug on the market.
Yeah.
And we can't take that on right now. Like that doesn't work.
Yeah.
But later down the line.
And now to add to that, the fact you want to do it in space.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We haven't even factored that bit into it yet. So not for now, but never say never.
Okay. So let's talk about the ethics of it then. So you are helping drug companies produce things in space.
Yeah.
They're now more stable, more everything like that.
Yeah.
Are you worried at all within all that you actually produce something which then prices people out of it?
Yeah, it is something. It's something I think about, because I do think that initially we're not going to be able to hit those price points for what we want to, what we're aiming for. That's not going to be our first step. So then that does worry me, because what control do I have? I'm not the pharma company then setting their price points, and it has to make financial sense from their side. So it is something I think about. It's not what the company was started for. I know why we started this, but again, I can do what I can do.
Yeah.
So but it's a tough one. It's a really tough one.
Yeah. I mean, I think about, a lot of the tech we're developing today and the impact on humanity of those things we're doing. And, I worry that, we're seeing, we see things all the time about the way in which the polarization of society.
Yeah.
And, I think that we need to be mindful of all these things always.
Yeah.
And, what excites me about your technology is that if you get it right, which by all counts, there's for you, there's degrees of right rather than right or wrong.
Yep.
So I like that straight off. But I like the fact that, ultimately we can say, here's the drug and you're in this super hot region of Africa. So what? Or, with Australia, so what?
Yeah.
We can get you the drug you need, and it can sit there on a shelf for years and then be available when you need it.
Yeah.
Potentially. And that is just brilliant.
Yeah. And it would have such a massive impact. And I am very excited for, I hope, when BioOrbit has drugs that are then on the NHS. And then people don't need to go to hospital and they can stay at home. Like that keeps me motivated.
You've talked about this in the past, haven't you? About the idea of actually just self-serve, effectively. Tell me about what do you mean?
So that would be, again, rather than needing to go to hospital and have it intravenously injected, because that you need nurses to look over you, you need professionals. You have it in a self-injectable pen that you then keep
like
at
an
home.
EpiPen type thing.
Exactly. And then you can just inject yourself. So in terms of the downstream cost saving, it's not just from the hospital's perspective, but from the patient's perspective. You don't need to travel, you don't lose work days, all sorts.
Isn't it mad
Feel
how
more human.
the more I'm talking, the more I'm seeing just more. I mean, you probably think you've thought about this all the time, haven't you? You clearly. But the idea that you've got so many cost savings along the way for an NHS that's cash strapped. You know, the National Health Service in the UK, I should make that really clear.
Yeah.
We're talking about here the NHS. But for insurance-backed providers, you know, the reduction in cost, but the part of that reduction in cost is the disruption to life.
Yes.
So if I have to go to get an intravenous, that's a half day or a day. Gone.
Yep.
And what you're saying is you're at home or you're at work, take your EpiPen. You don't have to have it refrigerated.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So you've got that stability. You're going on holiday, take your pens with you.
Exactly.
You know, just have your whatever.
Yeah. Because then otherwise patients, you know, might not be able to go on holiday because they have to be near hospitals for their treatment. So this is a whole paradigm that enables people to live a bit more. Yeah.
No, I have a condition called axial spondyloarthritis, and one of the treatments for that is well, there's lots of them out there at the moment, but some of them are protein-based things, and actually they have to be refrigerated. It does cause issues for traveling. There are all sorts of, you know, you can only take them away they can only exist outside for however many hours, even in a cool box. If you're going, you know, on safari or whatever, you can't. You know, there's certain things you can and can't do now. The idea that, you know, you're freeing up a whole, you know, and it's not even I often tell people about the fact it's not what's the word? It's not a rare condition. So it's not a rare condition, but most people haven't heard of it. But it's not a rare condition. So there's hundreds of thousands of people in the UK with this condition. And suddenly you're transforming their lives. And you know, and that's just one condition.
Exactly. There's so many different conditions that can benefit from this. And so like we're starting with the cancer drugs first, because I believe that that's where we can bring the most value immediately. But then again, broaden it out, and we're not limited. It's our hardware is versatile. It works with all sorts. So, and that's what we're designing it for. Obviously, we need to test that. But yes, it's the possibilities are huge.
Yeah, I am so excited to see what happens next.
Thank you.
First thing, before I ask my final question, which I ask everyone, which you know what it is already. And before I ask my final question, do you have any questions? As we've been talking, do you think actually there's something that, you know, out of all this, I'd love to ask Raj?
Ooh, I'd say, okay, so as you speak with a lot of different tech founders and tech companies, do you see what themes come out for you in terms of AI? Is it fear-based? Is it opportunity-based? Like, where's the mix?
Oh, I love that question. That's really interesting, because I've recently done a panel discussion on exactly this point. When we came on this point, we often see, you know, AI and fear being put in the same sentence, you know, and we see as how you restrict AI. And then I'm seeing, you know, we see the UK government's paper recently, and their paper was based around opportunity. And it was a really refreshing, different point of view to take. I would love people to think about opportunities here more. I think there's got to be a healthy aspect of fear, but I think fear should be contained in a way that actually, when you're thinking about these problems, you should be thinking about what's the impact to humanity of this. So I want to go on, But before we go on, I want to ask you a question,
Sure.
which is my final question. And then we can have maybe a bit more of a conversation about this. In a world of AI, what does it mean to be human?
I mean, my gut immediately wants to go towards the feelings aspect, because humans we aren't robots. We have emotions, and I think that is a key part of a lot of creativity. Not just in terms of arts, but in terms of all sorts, like tech, everything. Like having a connection in and a thought process. I think it is, that emotion side is very critical. And I do think that we need AI as a tool to help us be humans better as well, like learning faster, learning how to, like, being critical of data can help to use that as well. I find I use it for even helping me process things mentally. I'm like, okay, let's have a chat with ChatGPT, see, like, have a conversation and see what happens, and it helps so much. So I'd say not losing that human aspect, and not but more on the feeling side of things.
Yeah. The reason why I asked that in that point is because I think the biggest thing that we need to really answer the question of at the moment is, what does it mean to be human? Because what makes us human is what we should be protecting here. So within the world of AI, let's let AI go. Let's not think about restricting AI. Let's think about protecting what it means to be human. So start in a different place. And then look at all the opportunities within that for how we use AI. It's a weird one, because we often talk about restrictions. We talk about human rights and things like that, and protecting human rights. And maybe we need to have a conversation about, what does it mean to be human in order to protect the rights there. Because we don't often talk about that.
That's very true. Something that just came into my mind was the pyramid of needs. Is it Maslow's? Maslow's pyramid. And at the top, it's like, is it self-actualization right at the top?
Okay.
And then you've got other bits that are very, like, basic needs. And it's like, okay, how can AI and robotics help us move more people up the ladder? I.e., okay, does it help with food production, so that some of those base needs can be met on a grander scale, so that it can help more people move up the ladder if it's used in the correct way as a tool? Just a thought. I'm like,
I mean, my worry with all these things, and this is kind of going kind of off topic but on topic at the same time, is, we've got this amazing tool, AI. What do we do? What do we do then? If we've got AI doing...
it's being human.
We just end up being human.
Yeah.
But if we end up being human, what do we do?
What do you enjoy doing? What gives you a fire in your belly?
Yeah, but I mean, I can't, for a living, if that's the right phrase, run up and down mountains. That is what I love doing. But, the idea that, does that mean, does having AI mean I'm free to run up and down mountains all I want? Because that's a different, because I think about, I just think that there's fundamentally something that needs to be different about how we order society in that world at that moment in time. And what I don't want to end up in is a situation where we are pushing ahead and not thinking about where do humans fit in this new order.
Or maybe it's also, rather than thinking of humans as individuals, it's the community aspect, because I think that's something that gets lost a lot in modern day world, is that, okay, and even as I've been speaking, I'm like, oh, how does AI then help you as an individual? But we are community-based creatures, and we should be. And like, so much of negative side effects come when you're not part of a community, like isolation and feeling lonely, even in such a connected world. And so how can that would be something I'd put on the table, would be about, how can it be, being human is about the community.
I love this so much. Katie, thank you so much for all your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your ideas and thoughts on this one. I love the fact we've started off by talking about space and doing things in an automated way without humans involved in space. And now we've come round to the idea that humans need society and on Earth, and that's the future needs that. I think that whole arc is fascinating. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just so you know, this podcast is for general information only. It's definitely not legal advice, and it doesn't create a lawyer-client relationship. Laws change, and they can be different where you live. So please don't rely on this when making decisions. If you need advice, speak to a lawyer. Every now and then, platforms might pop links or extra content alongside this podcast. They're not from me or Wilson Sonsini, and in some places, this episode counts as attorney advertising.